A legacy built on power, a family torn by secrets. When the patriarch of a powerful dynasty dies, his sons must choose. Will they fight for the empire or break free and rebuild it from the ground up? In a city of ambition, betrayal, and hidden truths, the Adebayo bloodline is about to face its greatest test. The rain fell softly over the city as people dressed in black gathered outside a grand mansion. The news had spread. Adebayo, a powerful businessman who built his empire from the ground up, was dead. Now, all that remained were the memories of his influence, the wealth, the properties, and the fear he once instilled in everyone. Inside, his first son, Tayo, stood apart from the crowd. At the graveside, the elders chanted, while Tayo, his son, stayed silent, the rain soaking into his suit. He watched the casket lower into the ground and thought, he built everything. He controlled everyone. And in the end, he couldn't even control death. Behind him, his brother Sei muttered under his breath, I bet he's still trying to run the afterlife. 7 days after the burial, the family gathered in Adebayo's study to hear his will. The room was quiet, with tension so thick you could touch it. Tayo stood next to Sei, the second son, who had lived in the city all his life. Sei had always been there, running the family's affairs, while Tayo had been far away. The lawyer cleared his throat, breaking the silence. He picked up the letter and began reading.
If you're hearing this, I'm already gone. I leave my empire not to one, but to both of my sons, Tayo and Sei. I trust you will manage it together despite your differences. You are my legacy. Do not let it die with me.
Sei scoffed. Equally, his laugh was a punch to the room. After everything he's done to me. His voice cracked with anger. Tayo said nothing at first. He simply stared at the letter, trying to understand the man who had been both father and stranger to him. Tayo spent the following days sifting through his father's records, old files, documents, business deals. Everything had been meticulously documented. Some of it was legitimate. Some of it, however, told a different story. One of corruption, bribery, and land taken from the poor to expand his empire. Sei was not surprised. He had lived through it all, watching their father's empire grow while the people suffered. You've been away too long, Sei said one night as they argued over the future of the business. You think you can just come back and change everything? Chiu was calm. I never wanted this, but I'll do what's right. Meanwhile, Mofe, a rival businessman who had always wanted a piece of Adebayo's empire, was waiting for his moment. The brothers had no idea that Mofe had already started plotting against them. Late one evening, Tayo found something hidden away. A file buried beneath stacks of paper. It was a DNA test result, confirming the existence of a third child, a daughter, raised far away in the north, away from the family's drama and the city's chaos. Aunt Titi, who had been with the family for years, confirmed the truth. Your father had her kept away for her safety. He wanted her out of the business world, out of all this. Tayo sat on the floor, back against the cold wall. Somehow, this felt bigger than a fortune. It felt like a lie he'd been living under his whole life. A daughter? Mofe whispered that the third child was the legitimate heir, trying to pit the brothers against each other. At first, Tayo sat in silence, blinking at the paper like it had whispered a lie. Then the silence turned heavy. Not angry, not yet, just uncertain. He didn't tell Sei immediately. He waited, sat with it, read it again, checked dates, timelines, cross-referenced letters and receipts their father had tucked away, as though he wanted this to be found. Just not too soon. When he finally told Sei, the reaction was instant. "Now there's a sister?" Sei asked, pacing the same study where the will had been read. His laugh was dry, not from humor, but exhaustion. First he gives away half the empire. Now this? Who else is out there, Tayo? What else don't we know? But behind the sarcasm, there was pain. A different kind. The kind that came from realizing your father didn't trust you with the truth. Tayo answered softly. She didn't ask to be hidden. He made that choice, not her. It wasn't easy to convince Sei. He had grown up in the shadow of power, constantly earning his place. Now he had to share it with a stranger, a woman, someone who wasn't even part of the legacy in his mind. But curiosity is louder than pride, and guilt even louder still. They arranged to meet Tola, not as heirs, not as rivals, as people bound by a bloodline none of them asked for, and the silence of a man they all called father, even if in different ways. She arrived wearing no makeup, no diamonds, just presence. Tayo saw it first, the same stubborn set of the jaw, just like their father, the same intensity in her eyes. She was their sister, before any DNA test could say it. Her voice was calm. Her eyes said she'd seen enough of life to know when not to fight it. "I don't want his empire," she said simply. "I grew up with nothing, and yet I've had peace. I came here for closure, not a claim." In that moment, something shifted. She wasn't a threat. She was a mirror, showing the parts of their father they never knew existed. The gentle ones, the ones he tucked away with her. There was no legal battle, no dramatic standoff, just a quiet agreement that the story should change with them. For the first time, the family was complete, not by design, but by truth. And in truth, they began again. Tola's presence was like balm, soothing, opening old wounds they didn't even know they had. But before the silence could fully settle, a news alert flashed on the screen behind them, breaking through the peace. The headline read, "Adebayo's family implodes. Illegitimate daughter. Secret deals." The three of them froze. They didn't need to read further to know it was Murphy's doing. But for once, the siblings didn't turn on each other. They turned together. Tola smiled thinly. "Let him come. He's playing chess. We're playing family." Instead of collapsing, the The siblings closed ranks. Every dirty deal, every hidden crime their father committed, they laid it all out, owned it, apologized, made it right where they could. "You want to kill us?" Tayo said at a press conference. "Good luck. We're already dead to the old empire." Time passed, but not aimlessly. Where there had once been distance, now there was deliberate effort. Conversations turned into plans. Plans became blueprints. And for the first time in decades, the Adebayo name began to mean something more than fear, more than pride. Tayo, Seyi, and Tola. 3 souls, 1 strangers, now rebuilding not just an empire, but a story. The estate that once stood like a fortress was no longer the center. Instead, they moved their focus to the city's forgotten corners. The neighborhoods their father's company had displaced. The families left behind. The promises never kept. On a clear afternoon, the siblings stood at the site of a new community housing project. Not a monument to their father, but a commitment to those he had overlooked. There were no media cameras, no grand speeches, just real people, real plans. Children playing nearby, women selling food under sun-worn umbrellas, laughter rising, not from the powerful, but from the people. Tola looked around, smiling. It doesn't erase what he did, but maybe it adds something better. Sei nodded. We're not cleaning his legacy. We're planting a new one. Tayo simply said, let's make sure it grows. The empire of Adebayo was built with cement and steel. But this new one, it was built with courage, with reconciliation, with choices made in the open, not in shadows. Not every family gets a second chance. But when they do, if they choose it, the legacy becomes more than inheritance. It becomes healing. And in that healing, a new name is written. Not all stories end in wealth, or power, or fame. Some end in quiet decisions, in brave choices, in second chances. This was never really about a will, or an empire. It was about learning what truly lasts, about realizing that legacy isn't what you leave in your bank account. It's what you leave in people's hearts. It's the truth you tell, the pain you heal, and the peace you choose. Because silence, even when dressed in dignity, leaves a mess. But truth, even when it hurts, opens a door. Family isn't just blood. It's who chooses to stay. And redemption, it's not earned, it's embraced. So if you ever find yourself standing in the ruins of what someone else left behind, remember this: you can begin again. You can build better. And that is the real inheritance.